backed into a corner, no real choice. Just gotta be ready, or like you're in trouble. You're a really bad host otherwise. Talking of bad hosts, welcome to episode 253, and welcome to Adam.
I've returned from my pilgrimage. Notice how I'm back and we win. So
it's not a coincidence.
No, I'm just saying.
Yeah, we'll pretend it's absolutely on purpose. We just wanted to keep losing games of football. That was the secret behind it. How has everybody's week been? How's everybody doing?
Good. It's nicer weather now. Like, especially here, like it got up to like 20, 25, which is like, that's prime time beer garden weather. So I survived the winter once again, which is nice.
Yeah, Chicago, you deserve a nice summer when what you go through during the winter. Yeah,
it gets up to double digits and everyone's out. So
everyone comes out of hibernation. Yeah, exactly. Nice. Josh, what about you?
Yeah, it's very much the same here. 18 degrees today, 19 tomorrow, 18, 19 in the 20s throughout the rest of the week. Like it seems like summer, spring is actually here, which is really nice. Like it's beautiful. And this new house, like the benefit of it is like basically this entire side of this wall is just like big open doors and then a big window, and it's right where the sun comes in. So all day it's just like cats and dogs in a line, just cooking, like marinating. But it's really nice. So far so good.
Sweet.
Adam, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's been really busy here the last few weeks, hence my absence. But it was beautiful weather here, and then today it's just we now basically have a week of cloud and storms, which is just classic US weather. It tricks you, and then you get screwed over again. But we're getting there, and I feel a lot better about things after we finally scored a goal, which brings us now to, I think, a grand total of 2 goals scored by Brighton players since February the 24th in the Premier League.
Open play as well. Open play.
Yeah, it was open play goal. Yeah. So that's something to write home about, isn't it?
Yeah, we've not had the best couple of months. Do you know, funnily enough, I was just looking into a couple of other teams' results after seeing West Ham get absolutely smashed. They have not won a game since March the 2nd, West Ham in the league. So
every team that
there are a lot of teams doing poorly.
It's those teams that are in the same position of ours that aren't constant. They don't have the squads to deal with all these competitions. So you sort of say Villa looked exhausted. West Ham have looked exhausted. We've looked exhausted. Newcastle, same thing. There's no surprises here. Like there's all of these of your Man Cities and so on and so forth start to fall away at this point in the season. So it's anyone's guess who actually wants to finish anywhere between like about 9th and 15th. It's just who can drag themselves over the finish line.
Yeah, no win since Forest in the league. Obviously, that 1-0 win at home, which we've since just gone ahead and replicated. But what were your thoughts going into Villa? Like, bogey team, like they've absolutely dicked us 6-1 at their place. Like, it's just, was it 6-1 or 6-0 even? It's 6-1.
It was something bad.
Yeah, it was bad anyway. It was awful. Absolutely hammered. Like, going into this game, no win since March the 10th in the league. Obviously, Roma a couple of days later, but it was 4-1 on aggregate anyway, so it didn't really feel like much of a win. What were your thoughts when you saw that lineup? A back four with Webster at centre half, Igor at left back, Veltman at right back, and Dunk obviously, and Verbruggen back in goal after Steele came in against City. Gilmore and Gross back in the centre of midfield. Buonanotte, Pedro, Adingra in the midfield attacking group, and then Welbeck leading the line up front against Villa, who obviously, quite surprisingly to everybody else, got absolutely housed at home to Olympiacos midweek. What did you make of that lineup? What were your thoughts? Did you think that we were going to be able to be like competitive today, knowing our form and knowing how Villa are such a bogey team, or did you think that we may be in for a bit of a rough time?
I thought we'd get battered because we've been absolutely shocking. Well, why would you look at what we've done lately and think anything else? You'd have to be mad to think we'd come out today and actually get 3 points. Speaking of what you just said, you sort of shocked me a little bit. Think how long ago that Roma game feels. Like, it feels like another lifetime. And our last win in the league was before that. Like, that is nuts. And you think back to, just when we won prior to that point, it was the Sheffield United game on the 18th of February. Like, absolutely ridiculous kind of stuff. So, yeah, today, you look at the recent run of form that we've had. If you even want to classify it as form, I think I'd rather just classify it as sort of consecutive failures. And you see Adam Webster on the team sheet and you think, how bad is this going to be? And we actually looked like Brighton today. We actually looked like the team that we've seen play good football over the 2+ seasons. And you kind of got worried at points that the goal was never going to come, and we got what we deserved, which is a rarity for this team.
Yeah, I mean, everything pointed towards abject failure once again, right? So in typical Brighton fashion, that gives you that little 1% of hope where you're like, okay, like clearly nothing is about to go right. So there could be a chance. Lineup wise, about as good as you can ask for. I think I wouldn't have changed anything at all. But again, I was so pessimistic coming into this. I was like, I don't care. I was like, this, you could put any 11 out there and it feels like the whole world is against us anyway. So we're in this continuous free fall. So I was like, okay, sure. Whoever you put out there, I think the result will be the same. And I was sorely mistaken, which is good. But a lineup was about as good as you can expect.
Yeah, Robin, welcome to the show. Better late than never.
Thank you.
What were your thoughts when you saw that lineup?
Yeah, I was a bit worried about central midfield, I'll be honest, because I had still slight nightmares about. Do we have Hinchelwood and Gilmore? I think in that 6-1 demolition at Villa Park. So I just thought we looked a little. I thought the only thing I'm with Craig, I probably on balance wouldn't change anything, but the only one that I thought potential was maybe Baleba in there for a bit more energy and physicality in central midfield. But other than that, as good as you can get. I sort of caught the end of it, but I'd imagine there was a bit of Webster chat when we saw him on the team sheet.
No.
I'd have shared that, but he had a good game, pretty solid.
Yeah, we'll be talking very positively about Adam Webster, I think, today.
I think I think he put one ball out of play, and that's about as bad as it got, which in Webster terms is kind of bad and awful, right? So all good on that perspective.
Yeah, the Albion started pretty well as well, and really should have gone into the break in the lead. They absolutely dominated the first half. Edged possession, 55%. We did quite a good job of making Villa a little bit uncomfortable because they're used to not having a lot of the ball at all and like scything teams apart with that counter attack. But we didn't press them as hard as usual, and that felt a little bit tactical in the fact that we were quite happy to allow them a bit more of the ball because they didn't really do much with it. That we had 6 shots, 4 of those on target, 90% pass success rate in that first half, well over 1.0 XG. Like, we absolutely beat the crap out of him, really. Pascal Gross, really good opportunity. Adingra should have done a lot better with his one from João Pedro. There was a lot of moments in that first half where it felt like we went into halftime and you thought, oh, shit. Like, I hope we don't come out and shit the bed here a little bit with the performance that we've just put on. Like, it's going to be kind of a peak Graham Potter moment with kind of XG champs and all of that. But what were your thoughts into that first half? How good was the Adingra, especially throughout all 90, really? It looked like if anything was going to happen, it was going to come from Adingra on that left-hand side, didn't it?
And it was pretty much built for that, right? Like, I think it kind of felt, and we've seen this before, when you don't have 2 out-and-out wingers, you can kind of feel a little bit one-trick pony, and sort of just try and loft it over to Adingra and for him to do his best. But it worked today against Ezri Konsa. I think he really got the better of him over 90 minutes. Like you said, everything good that was going to happen was going to come through him, either passively or actively. So really good just to see again how pivotal wingers are to our entire system and to De Zerbi's system. But for it to actually work and come to fruition for once, makes you look like a good football team again, right? So like that was the entire premise of our attack, and it worked. I think he had Konsa on skates all 90 minutes.
You know what's weird is that there was a number of times, and you kind of pointed this out, Josh, where Adingra did some stuff where you were like, oh, that's quite bad. Like you can see he's still a very young guy that needs more experience. And then you saw the other side, which, as you say, he's probably man of the match. And I don't even know if it was that close. But as you say, getting on the end of that cross that came in, there was a couple of passes that he made that were shocking. And then he like creates that amazing pass over the top towards the end of the first half that I think it was Gross couldn't finish, right? And a couple of other things that he did were absolutely incredible. I mean, this is a guy that he had 90% pass accuracy, and he put in 4 crosses, 5 key passes in total. Like this is a guy that wasn't just like playing it safe, and he still had that kind of accuracy. He was all over the place defensively. He was also pretty decent as well. So that was, I mean, incredible performance from him. I do want to bring up another one. I don't know if I'm completely going all over the place here, but João Pedro looked like the old João Pedro for the first time in this game, in my opinion. He was obviously playing behind Welbeck. His hold-up play was really nice. Every time he touched it, it looks like he knew exactly what he was doing. The ball went where he wanted it to go. His play towards the end of the game was really mature in terms of how he kept the ball into the corner and was sensible with it. I thought he was really impressive today, João Pedro, as well.
Yeah, me too. Robin, João Pedro is almost definitely going to be on the team sheet basically every week next season with no Europe to worry about, rotation running down a little bit, hopefully, right? As long as they don't get the same injury crisis continuing over. We'll talk a little bit about that, hopefully being mitigated with some of the moves we've made this week. Where do you want to see João Pedro start? Do you want, assuming we're going to be playing that 4-2-3-1, which really is De Zerbi's choice whenever possible, right? And hopefully it will be most of the time next season. Do you prefer him in that 10 role that he played today? Because as Adam said, I think he was incredibly effective too. I totally agree with him.
Yeah, he's an absolute menace when he's on his game in that role. Like you saw that little touch there in the second half. I still can't work out how he's nutmegged the guy. I can't work out whether he's done it on purpose or whether it's just such a deft touch that my brain can't actually process it. But because he's basically got the attributes of a centre forward, but he's good enough to play in the 10 role. So he's an absolute menace in that. So when he's running it, when he's cutting in, he's getting the ball a bit deeper and he's running at defences, they shit themselves, right? You saw a pretty experienced Villa backline today backing off him. So I absolutely want to see him in that kind of 10 role.
I feel like at the start, although Adingra had predominantly played on the left-hand side, I feel like the front 4 for the first 20, 25 minutes of the game were completely fluid. It felt like they were all swapping positions quite regularly. And you saw João Pedro drift out to the left a couple of times. And I think maybe speaking for all of us, was like, oh, please don't go out there. Please come back inside, because we've seen that. And I think last episode, you guys talked about that. Like, let's get João Pedro off the left. Let's play him a bit more centrally. And it paid dividends today. And the fact that we haven't even talked about the fact that he did miss a penalty for the first time in eons speaks a lot.
In his career.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I wonder if he'll count it. He'll probably rationalize it in his head, won't he? But like, nah, it's still a goal, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Second chance.
Their keeper was really impressive today, by the way. Like, we should have probably won that 2-3-0.
It was going to be a textbook, like Amex keeper not expected to play has a blinder. Like,
the Football Manager
so many
like
of these, right?
exploit where the keeper like plays a 10 when you have 300 shots. But I mean, this was as close to a battering as you can, like, we are capable of, like, without scoring more. Like this, you reeled off some of the stats, Josh. Like, we ended up with was 2.7 expected goals in total, 15 total shots to Villa's 2. Like, they were dominated. This is a side that's about to play Champions League football unless they completely screw it up. We got what we deserved. We earned those 3 points.
It was nice being on the other side of European tiredness too, wasn't it? like it was nice to actually be the team that had a week's worth of rest and like looked reasonably fresh, even though we were, as we talked about last week extensively, we are missing so many of our key players.
Like, Villa are missing more players than we are, to be fair.
I think
who are they missing?
Out.
Like
they're missing Tielemans, Buendia, Emi Martinez, Mings, Kamara, Ramsey, Zaniolo, House. There's about 5 starters there.
So they're about at our level now, aren't they?
Yeah.
Welcome to the club, Aston Villa.
Yeah.
But screw them. They spent too much money anyway, you know?
But I think Adam was exactly right. He said it just looked like today that everybody had a vague idea of what they were supposed to be doing, which, you know, you expect that as a minimum generally, right? But we haven't looked like that for the last few weeks. It's kind of just looked like not even organised chaos, just chaos with no one really sure on their roles. And today it just looked like everyone... The game plan was solid. It was just there. So I don't know what the difference is. Whether it's, I don't know, there being more confidence from the team that De Zerbi's going to be here next season. So everyone's just knuckling down a bit more and they want to show that they want to be on the team sheet next season. But whatever it is, it looked like everyone's roles were defined and everyone was kind of doing them. How was different.
How much credit do you think this was Villa being poor versus Brighton being good? Because you could argue that the Olympiacos game, where Villa are now potentially just going out of the Europa Conference League, right? They're 4-2 down, I think, right? That might have just killed their spirit off for this game. But was this us just being incredible, or was this them just allowing us to be incredible?
I mean, the boring answer is a bit of both, right? So, and I think you've got a very leggy 11 with loads of injuries, the same as us, and sort of just priorities, right? You've just come off the back of a loss at home to Olympiacos on the Thursday. Tired, very tired, but you also go up against quite a good system. And I know we haven't been great in the last couple of months. I couldn't buy a goal, couldn't buy a win, like for love nor money. But it's still a good team, right? We've still got a principle and we still can beat teams. We just haven't in a long time. So it's good to see a game plan that finally worked, but also it's good to see some of these players actually being the players we thought and know that they can be in Adingra and Pedro. Like we said, Webster actually had a good game. He has that in him when he hasn't got that rustiness to him. So I thought everyone put in a shift, right? And don't get me, my take is that we weren't incredible, because if we were, we would have won that 3 or 4 and we would have put the chances away. I think we did ride our luck on putting those chances away, even missing a penalty from a guy that does not miss penalties, right? It's like we actively tried to draw this game. So yeah, it is a bit of both. It's the boring answer, but I think it does us wonders to finish the season right and above Palace, which was my worst fit. So
took the words out of my mouth. Like, finishing above Palace is now for me the be all end all, and I think that one they can max out at 49, I believe, and that to me is like they're not getting that. We're at 47 now. We should be fine. Like, it's going to take an absolute monumental achievement from them, so we should be safe. Robin talked about playing time for next season, and the fans forum was this week, and I watched it this week because one, it was at 7:00, which was a nice time to just like have it on in the background while life's going on. And secondly, De Zerbi I always want to see what De Zerbi is going to say in a situation like this, because he has little to no filter, and all this talk about his future and stuff, you never know what's going to come out of his mouth. But I'll be surprised to find anybody out there that had anything worried about to say about him. He did really well. Like, I thought he came across really well. It was very clear that he still is passionate about being here, unless someone comes in with a shit ton of money and wants him, then obviously it's a different world altogether. But what I found really interesting was someone talked to him about the fact that our style of play seems to have moved away from essentially being cutting edge enough to score loads of goals. That was the short end of it. Like, they wanted us to score loads of goals. We're not scoring loads of goals anymore. Why not? And he talked a little bit about the fact that due to the injuries and the way we play and what he wants from his players, he can't have teams set out to do what he usually does. So he said, missing Purvis for most of the season is brutal. Missing Mitoma for large parts is brutal. Having Adingra and Lamptey play on the right together is not conducive to his play style, because Adingra should not be playing on the right. That's his own words. Talking of playing time next season, there's no rhyme nor like there's no doubt that Mitoma is our number one starter on the left hand side. What happens to Adingra next season, guys? Because there's not going to be the rotation and the necessary rotation for Europe next season. March will be coming back. Buonanotte is done decently enough, and Ciso is knocking around. Pedro's there. What do you think that
Adingra is coming in, right?
Yes, Osman's already coming in from Norway. What? Just all of you, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what the future for Adingra is, because De Zerbi obviously knows it as well as us. Like, he's better on his left-hand side. He lit the game up today in his left-hand side, and he's simply not going to be number one choice no matter what he does in these next 2-3 games, right? Like, what do we do with Simon Adingra? He had the season breakout that no one expected him to have by force, really, due to injuries. And now he's looking at probably a lot of time on the bench next year.
Well, I mean, it's going to be good. I think it's going to be one. You can't rule out I think another horrendous injury crisis, right? So let's put that straight out there. It's perfectly possible the same thing happens again. But having the luxury of not having to run these players into the ground, right? We've seen this year the kind of the merry-go-round of injuries has been basically, if you're fit, you're playing every game, and then what happens is you play every game and then you get injured just at the time that someone else is coming back, and so the cycle goes on. So actually having the choice there to not end up in a situation where you're having to play players when you can clearly see they should have a week on the bench will be a big positive, I think. It's one of those textbooks nice headaches to have, right? Like, it will give De Zerbi more flexibility. We've seen in his early days where he's at his best, right? Where he's got the squad available to really come up with a plan, a specific plan to beat any particular team, right? So having the ammunition available to do that it's a nice problem to have.
Well, I also feel like a lot of this is going to depend on if we actually decide we'll sign a fullback this summer, which, famously we don't love doing, because Estepinion's not going to be fit for the start of the season, right? That's already been discussed.
He's definitely out of the Euros. Is he definitely not going to be fit for the start of the season as well? I thought it was 2-3 months.
I thought that's what I heard, but even if he is back, we've seen that we can't necessarily completely rely on him, right? He can get an injury, as sort of Robert said.
Ecuador in the Euros.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know what I mean, though.
Is the Copa's not the same time? I can't even remember.
Anyway, no, it is the same time. I'm just being an idiot because I'm thinking
I'm
of
just
the Euros
as well. So
but yeah, no. The competition over there, because I think it is just the Copa America now, because they are doing it across both North and South this year.
Yeah, it's a combo thing, aren't they? Well, it's because Solly March played left back when needed a little bit, right? We've seen him do that. We've also we haven't mentioned Valentin Barco. Like, Barco sort of wants to play left wing as well. So you've got like a bunch of these players. If Adingra, I'm not completely averse to playing Mitoma on the right side. I know they love him cutting inside, but he is a right-footed player. You can just have him play on the right wing and use his right peg, and then have Adingra on the left. Unless De Zerbi's completely wedded to the idea of having this cut-in invert that happens on the wing, the crazier things have happened.
I do think Adingra was the ready-made replacement for Mitoma, right? Like, if Mitoma had the season that we were thinking he was going to have, I think the likelihood of him leaving was pretty high. So that was probably your initial business plan, right? Was, okay, well, he'll be playing next year, so let's just bet him in. But it hasn't happened due to injuries and, a good season, don't get me wrong, but like not the breakout season that maybe you would expect from Mitoma. So next year, I agree. I think you give Adingra 30 minutes a game, right? It's an absolute live wire. He's so fast. He does give that energy and is able to change a game. We've seen that. So, if you are settled on the right wing, if De Zerbi really doesn't want to play him there, then those sort of 30 minutes a game can be game changing. right? And I think it's a very good impact sub to have. Is he going to be happy with that? Is another question. Is another discussion. But for me, you would have Matoma for 70 minutes, a Dinger every 20 minutes. There's no right back in the Premier League that's going to be able to deal with that for 90, 95 minutes. So we'll see.
Josh, I kind of want to go back to your De Zerbi comments on the tactics as well, because this doesn't help that I'm got the Spurs Liverpool game on in the background. So if you are listening to this and the outcome is different from what I'm about to say, but Liverpool look like they're just peppering the Spurs goal. Spurs have been absolutely diabolical.
I've got it right there, and they're just beating the shit out of them.
Yeah, they are battering them. So invariably Spurs will win. But like Spurs have been on this horrendous run of form, right? Like lost to Chelsea, lost to Arsenal, battered by Newcastle, like drew with West Ham. It's not been good. We talked at the start of the season, there's a lot of parallels between the nature of the play between Postecoglou and De Zerbi in the way the team is set up, and this idea of like, okay, we are just going to go hell for leather to score more than you. And both teams have fallen off incredibly hard at this point in the season. Like, is this a tiredness thing? Is this an injury thing? Is this a teams have found out how Postecoglou and De Zerbi were? I know we've had this conversation and this has happened a lot of times, but it just seems weird to me that a team fairly similar in their tactical setup and their style of play is suffering from the exact same problems we are at the moment.
I think, I don't know how much Spurs you've watched, but like they play with even more naivety than we do.
Yeah.
Like, it's why we put 4 past them at the Amex at the end of December when our bad run was just starting. And we still put 4 past them. Like, they seem to be even more naive than us. And like you say, that means that by the time people are listening to this tomorrow or the next day on their commute, like they've won 3-0 today. So like, we'll look like idiots. But they do play very open to a fault. And like it's gonna be easier to expose than De Zerbi's, because at least sometimes we can show some rigid football, like which we've done so today. There doesn't seem to be any opportunity for that with Spurs, and really their defensive tactic is rely on Van der Ven being like 100-mile-an-hour road runner and like saving them all the time, like, which is not going to work against most teams. But I don't think it's a coincidence. To go to the overarching question, I think that these high energy, high pressure teams are teams that are going to tire out towards the end of the season. I think that's why you see Manchester City, with all of their depth and all of their strengths, be able to come good at the end of the season in such a cliche way, because they play with the ball at their feet all the time to such an extent that the tiredness doesn't hit them where it hits everybody else. And they can just, when you compare it to the way Arsenal and Liverpool play, it's little wonder that even though Man City is sitting second, they're fully in the driver's seat and are almost definitely going to win the title, because it lends themselves to be so much pressure at this point in the season, I think.
Yeah, especially we've seen it with Liverpool lately. Again, their game's going on right now, but their recent form has been, obviously they've fallen off, and the Klopp farewell tour has been hilarious to see. But yeah, that's again high intensity, and they don't have the squad depth that they want either, right? It makes me wonder about the summer. And I think there were some interesting statements that came out this week where it finally felt like De Zerbi and the hierarchy at the club were finally like sort of on the same page. Because I think it was Barber that came out, right, and said something along the lines of De Zerbi, it's on us to give him what he needs to build up the squad for us to get back into European football. And I think De Zerbi came out a little bit more placid this week, right, and talked about, and it's probably from the fans forum, I love this city, I love the fans, I love these players, like I want to be here, kind of thing. And that's a very different tone from the last few weeks, where there was these utterings of discontent from, quite frankly, from both sides. It felt like. It makes me wonder what we'll do in the summer. How are we ever going to get to De Zerbi's squad depth that it requires for this style of play, or is he going to need to adapt? Like, we don't have unlimited cash.
Well, I think it'll be a big window. I think it's going to be an unusually big window for us.
I think it has to be.
And talked about, right?
I'd love to hear from you and Craig about this one as well. Like from that fans forum, we kind of give the fans forum a hard time as fans because some of the questions that come out are just so inane. But one of the like talking about like set pieces and just like random shite, like. But one of them that came out was one of the ladies at the fan forum noted that Albion have a severe like lack of players aged 25 to 29, like your peak footballer essentially. And she's absolutely correct though. Solly March, Mitoma, Estepinian, and Igor Webster.
Webster's at his peak for sure, yeah.
And that is it for them. And Dahoud on loan.
5?
So 5 players.
Of which 3 have been pretty much, of which how many have actually been regularly available to play this year? March has been done for most of it. Purvis has been out.
Mitoma has been out.
Mitoma's been out. So none of them have really been eligible. Well, none of them have really been available for a massive chunk of the season.
But out of a squad of about 30, only 5 match that 25 to 29. Craig and Robin, do you think that this transfer window needs to be, in Robin's words, a bigger window and big, presumably in cash spent, but also in names brought in? And that primarily means that because of that, it's going to primarily be that age bracket of player at their peak.
Yeah, I think, and just to echo Adam's point, 25 to 29 is your peak value as a footballer, right? And I think if you take it in boring like business terms, right, you're going to lose money on players that you buy from 25 years old to 29 years old because they're just going to depreciate in value from that point. And that's why you mix young with old, right? You get your Milners, your Lallanas, your Welbecks in, and you combine them with your Barcos, your Encisos, and your Buonanottes, and you have that average age that you're really looking for. So from a business sense, 25 to 29, you know you're taking a hit, right? Unless someone goes and has a stellar season and you sell them on for even more, you're still taking 10% of a profit, right? You buy them for 60, sell them for 70. That doesn't look very nice on the balance sheet. So it is what it is. But you do think from a performance perspective, you need to start investing in those players to really drive you into that next level, right? So if you do have those elite players in that category that can do you a job for 4 or 5 years, as long as it's worth it, right? You get back into Europe, you get all that revenue back, and you start putting in better and better performances, then by all means. I do think this season you are going to see that. I think there's only so much you can do with 18, 19, 20-year-olds. And as well as we have done and got to 6th in the Premier League, which is unheard of, I do think you need to start investing in those I say elite, but like those players that can drive you into that new level with more consistent performances, with leadership, with ability that typically we only see the season before we sell them for a profit.
Josh, have you started your annual Locatelli yet? Because he's 26, mate. He's back. He is like he's in.
We never stopped it.
He's in this window. It's really difficult because I agree with Craig totally. Like the model, I can't see us tearing up the model, right? Which is obviously, as every game you watch, every commentator talks about this. Buy low, develop, sell high, right? We're not going to tear that up. It's whether we adapt it. And if you're going to adapt it, you've got 2 options, really. You buy someone who is, inverted commas, ready-made. It's going to cost you more. And you play harder ball than we ever have done in terms of not selling them if they perform to the level, which is one way. Or you try and find the perfect balance between someone who is affordable, good enough to do a job at that level regularly, but not interesting enough that a big club's going to come along and sign them, which is much harder to do. So those are your 2 options. Like, I could see us, if we are going to do something this year that's different, one, it'll probably be, I can't see us selling anyone. Certainly first team, like first choice. So naturally by that, you're going to get everybody pushing a year closer to that peak. I could see us, to take that Locatelli, example, I could see us going out to sign at least one core player in that age bracket. but I can't see us doing anything dramatic in there. And it's whether, I mean, the big question is what happens with Milner and Lallana, right?
That's the question on everyone's lips, yeah.
That's going to be it. I mean, we've all assumed for a few weeks that they were both going to go, right? Because Lallana's out of contract. We've got a year option on Milner. And I think everybody assumed that they were both going to not be on the playing staff next season. But De Zerbi has said that he would quite like to see both of them. So what happens with that determines whether or not we need to go and, fluff up that kind of experience pool. But that's a long way of saying I basically can't see us doing a huge amount different. We may look to try and get someone specifically in that age bracket, but I think the bigger thing will be having a bit more depth and hopefully not as many injuries.
You take Dahoud as an example, right? I think this is something we've tried before that ended horribly, right? But that sort of established level player where you can try and get them for cheap because they've had a bad season or two, and then try and propel them to the heights that maybe they should have achieved or is likely to achieve. Now, just because it didn't happen with Dahoud, it doesn't mean that the plan has stopped.
Yeah, Milner's fun, isn't he? I'm still hoping that he becomes the talisman of the season, as I so smartly predicted he would be on our league beginning show when he comes back and puts in a masterclass performance on the final day. But what an absolutely shocking signing he's been when you sum it up and look back, because we had the first 3-4 games he played, I think we all collectively as a fan base basically said, what on earth has occurred here? Where's the original James Milner gone? We've signed his fake, his stunt double. And then he had a couple of really good mature games and then just got crocked. So he's been the reason why I'm saying this is that we better pick him up for his next year, because if not, this was an absolute waste of time. And Lallana needs to fade off into the sunset at this point, right? Still stay as part of the coaching staff. But the legs are gone. They've been gone. As much as I love him as a football player, the signing thing, just to add on one last bit to it, Robin was good about talking about this, but as you say, it's hard to sign players in that age range that are reputable. It's hard to find those players. Look at Chelsea. They changed their entire transfer policy to sign young players up because they cannot find those players in the age range we're talking about to perform at a higher level, because it's so competitive, even with their endless pots of money that they took from the hands of the Russian people for quite a few years. It was hard for them to do it. So if it's hard for them to do it, it's impossible for us to do it. So I think you're right. I think we continue to go down the pathway that we've done over the last few years. We'll continue to sign younger players. I do think this is overall just a masterclass from the club, though, that let's have 1 year where we're absolute crap, still finish in a fairly okay position. Meanwhile, no one wants our players now. No one's like, oh yeah, I need Matoma, I need Estupinian. Nah, there's none of that conversation.
Nobody wants De Zerbi. Yeah.
No, De Zerbi crap, absolutely useless. So it's great. This is just, I think probably Bloom sat De Zerbi down at some point and was like, look, mate, take your foot off. We'll just
tank the season, get the first draft pick.
Yeah, so we'll manage this from a PR crisis. We've got plenty of money from last year. Don't worry about that, and then we'll come back big next year. And all right, yeah, great, let's do it.
What did you make of the refereeing performance today in general? VAR, all of that good stuff. 2 goals ruled out for offside. Villa 11 fouls, only 1 yellow card at the end of the game. Was an interesting one for me. Couple of yellow cards for the Albion, including De Zerbi at the goal. Shocker. What did you make of those decisions? The Pascal Gross offside, the length of time it takes, just generally, what did you think? Did you think the ref had a good game today? Think it was poor? Bit of both? What were your thoughts?
I mean, unusually, there's not much to say, is there? I mean, as much as it took ages to get decisions, they were both correct. I didn't really have any problem with any of the yellow cards. Potentially could have given out a few more, but largely let the game flow. No real moments of particular controversy. If we'd have a refereeing performance like that every week, I'd be quite happy myself.
I'm annoyed still. The first half, Pau Torres carved down.
Yeah, that should have been a booking, right?
On the right wing, because
we were through. It was João Pedro.
Yeah, it was. Because he just put it to the right hand side of him, didn't he? Pushed it forward. How that is not a yellow card for basically a quote unquote professional foul? I'll never know. But I agree. Like the VAR, even, which is Michael Oliver, and I love to hate on Michael Oliver, but they took their time. Even so much that the commentator over here basically said on that the Villa disallowed goal, like, why are they taking so long? Just hurry up, it's clear as day. But that's good that they took their time, because the amount of times they rushed it and screwed it up, we know very, very well. Like, take your time, please get it right. That's the most important bit. So no, they were all right. My favorite part of the game though was the yellow card that Villa got for Matty Cash in the 99th minute, because Valentin Barco absolutely murked him. Obviously, Barker barely got time to do anything, but the one thing he did was just drag the ball back and meg Matty Cash, and Cash was just was having none of that, was he? He's like, I'll take my yellow card and just punch Barco a little bit. Sick of that.
What did you make of the Albion performance today, though? You think we were well worth the victory, all three of you? I think we were absolutely well worth the win in the end, even though we didn't manage to even convert the pen.
It was the one out of all the games that we had left, it was the one that I had written off most as being a loss. So that's pretty standard, right? Number one, having no idea. It's pretty accurate. But, if there was a good time to play them, then it comes after what they had on Thursday night, because that kind of thing tends to go two ways, right? Either you're on the end of someone who's sort of out for revenge, as it were, or you get a little bit of kind of tiredness. It would have been more interesting to see what sort of performance we'd have got from them if they didn't have quite such a cushion between 4th and 5th. But yeah, I think we were well worth the win, really. Did pretty well keeping Watkins quiet. Defense looked like a defense for the first time in quite a long time and performed like a collective unit. It's kind of all the, I don't want to praise it necessarily too much, because it kind of it's the basics you expect, but it's sort of a question of how far we've fallen in the past couple of months, that actually doing the basics of a kind of top half to kind of mid-table Premier League team, you should expect to have a back four that vaguely looks organised and knows how to defend. So
yeah,
where do you go? James in the chat talking about another year with De Zerbi. Like, I think that we're all probably borderline on the 100% point now at De Zerbi staying, are we? I think I'm as close as it gets to that now, even though Rangnick has turned down Bayern in the funniest way possible. Got them all the way to like basically signing on the dotted line and went, nah. Like, it seems that De Zerbi's name is not even in the Bayern Munich conversations anymore in the German press. Like, it's gone. So outside of Manchester United, possibly, but that doesn't seem like it's got any legs at all. It does look like De Zerbi is staying. It does look like there's been kind of official like verbiage used in these various press conferences this week that he is committing to another year. And I think James is right. Like, if there are going to be any clubs that inevitably come in for him, they are going to take another look next season, and inevitably someone will probably come in and snap him up. But the base and the consistency is a good thing, right? Like, we're on a bit of a poor run, but if there's anyone here that I don't think that we're going to be too much of a victim of carrying over poor form into next season with a fully fit squad. Do you think under De Zerbi doesn't feel like the kind of manager that would allow that to permeate through a preseason into a real season next summer?
I mean, the fact that we won today, right, has kind of kicked it slightly into touch, which is, if we'd have gone into the end of the season having lost, having not won in probably 10 games by that point, that's a bit different. But we've kind of broken it up nicely.
Well, let's see what the last 3 games have in store, because it's not all said and done yet.
No, like, I think even just getting a win, right? Even something just to break the cycle.
A goal, I think. It's scoring a goal that wasn't an own goal was big. Now the next step is obviously doing that not from a penalty save. That would be massive if we score an actual true open play goal. Then Brighton are back in a big way. I wonder how much the De Zerbi rumours that have been swirling have impacted the players over the last few weeks plus, and I wonder how much they'll impact the players next year, especially with the way that he manages. And I think it's famous with managers like Conte and others like that, who have this sort of hyper aggressive, like high pressure, do it this way, passionate, and then they fade. The teams fade after about 2 seasons, right? Because it's like, well, you can only do the shouting thing for a while, and you've G'd me up and I'm going to run through the wall for you. And now, well, hold on, you're shouting at me. It's not really working. And people are talking about you leaving the club. Like, I don't care anymore. I'm not going to perform. I wonder if we've seen a little bit of that.
I think we did in the Bournemouth game. We talked about it last week. Like 100%. Yeah. I thought the players just looked like they didn't care, especially.
Well, he said that, right? He said he couldn't motivate them.
Yeah,
and I know you talked about this last week, but yeah.
Yeah. So the obvious thing is you go, and at that point, right? I'd say the latter part of kind of that week leading up into the game, that was about as negative a mood, right, in terms of De Zerbi still being here. Those kind of 3 or 4 days preceding that, and then you have the Bournemouth game, which is just rubbish, right? It just looked like they'd kind of gone, well, this guy's not going to be here next season. We can't go up, we can't go down, we're not going to get into Europe. What's the point, basically? And we've seen a total flip of that script in the space of 7 days.
I don't know if you can blame them either, by the way. And also,
no, 100%
it's shit. Like the Amex was half full today. Like,
yeah.
4 games, the 3 games after this to the end of the season, everyone's like, oh, screw this. I'm not going to watch this crap.
It's understandable, right? If you look at the last few performances, you go, if they're, going to be on the beach as well. But that's also textbook, like, and no one turns up. We actually put in, we put in a performance kind of close to what we're capable of. But I think definitely the mood of since the fans forum, and it's little things, right? He got a really good reception at the fans forum.
He did.
Which, considering the form of the last 3 months, and considering, you take social media with a pinch of salt, right? But considering some of the nonsense on social media as well, which can sometimes kind of permeate into, real life discussion. The reception he got, I thought, was a pretty telling factor. And I guess he's the kind of person who wants to feel wanted, right? In a lot of ways, you can tell that he wants someone to, wants Tony Bloom to get the players that he wants. He wants the players to want him to be around. But I also think his whole aura, as it were, it's almost he wants everybody to love him, effectively. And
don't we all, Robin?
I was gonna say I'm gonna upset people on social media, but like the people I'm talking to don't listen to us anyway. They're too cool for that. But like, doesn't this just show more than anything like the people that are loudest online, like are the minority, right? Like that vocal minority, because the people that show up and give a shit and go to fan forums and show up to football games, actually watching football games live, they still like De Zerbi, they still give him great receptions, they still treat him with respect. It's the vocal idiots online, right? Yeah. That mouth off, that
but actually
give those opinions really that they want him gone.
Ask really good questions as well.
Like, it was probably the best fan forum I've ever seen.
Yeah, you've raised a couple of the
questions
good ones that were asked, but it was very much, there was not a massive number of, I can't take bottle tops into the Amex, my flask is now too big, or whatever, all this kind of nonsense you normally get. But actually it showed you, and like we talked about, Josh, on WhatsApp, the level of detail that De Zerbi was prepared to go into in his answers, particularly when talking about tactical stuff. That did not say to me, that did not show an example of somebody who's checking out mentally from their role, right? Like he
talked so much about what he wanted to do this summer too. Like all of it was with like future speak, like, which is like important really to like a psychology, isn't it? Like he was talking a lot in terms of like what he wanted to do this summer, and like if he was checked out, he just wouldn't say that bit. He would have said the rest, and he wouldn't have said that bit.
He could have gone with general platitudes about this is what we need to do better next season, but he was Yeah, it was wildly specific. If he's not going to be here, then it will look a bit odd. But
to be fair, though, it's like, start saying all the stunning girls have left the bar, and he's suddenly now like, I love my girlfriend. I'm going to stick with her for a little bit longer. It's like, yeah, all his options are gone, so he better be talking about that. If not, Bloom could be like, piss off then. So I agree with you with the online stuff. Let's start a beef, because there's one guy that absolutely does my head in online. I can't even remember his stupid name. Like, is it
never mind?
or something?
Never mind Kendrick and Drake. Adam's dropping this is right now, boys.
I think this guy's got thousands of followers, like Yappy, YAPI or something. Comes out with the most stupid drivel I've ever read online, which is saying something, and positions himself as a sort of Brighton super fan, and he's just a dipshit. I hope he's listening.
I can almost guarantee it's not. He's probably too busy listening to an Arsenal podcast or something like that.
Yeah, sure.
We talked a little bit, and this is the only question I wanted to hear at the fan forum, and it was I had it all prepared in my mind. I was going to text as many people as possible to ask it. With Brentford bringing together like a full-on like analysis team in to basically do like a retrospective on the amount of injuries they've gotten this season, being wildly unprecedented alongside us and Newcastle, like as the top three by a million miles as well. It's not even close. Like, what were the Albion doing, if anything, to investigate ours? Well, they answered that 4 hours before the fan forum. We have appointed Professor Dr. Florian Fab and as new head of medicine, and Dr. Gary Walker as our new head of performance. Both will take up roles with us in the summer ahead of pre-season for 24-25. We know that our much-loved, incredibly hench physios are no longer with us. So
they're alive still, but yeah.
Yes. Presumably. We've now got clearly the medical overhaul is here. This is clearly what the answer was going to be. We've just signed an entirely new medical staff. I'm assuming they will.
And we paid a transfer fee for the doctor, right? Which is wild.
£250,000. Yeah,
it must be good.
That's a Colin Kazim Richards. Like, that's a kind of club record deal not that long ago.
The Coca-Cola.
Right? To be fair, that barely gets you one operation in the US, so it's not a bad price for a decent doctor.
But yeah, it's the other guy come from.
What did we make of it?
I was going to say, it's the other one come from Man United. There's someone coming from Man United.
He's at Cincinnati, but via Man United. Yeah,
I think
he worked with Jack Stern, the goalkeeping coach, before. So
it's like that's probably the link.
Little friends all coming together.
I've heard he's coming only on the personal recommendation of Jurgen Locadia at their time at Cincinnati together.
Besties. Yeah.
So really, he's a living legend. Get the statue of Locadia immediately with a DJ track included. But it's reassuring, right? I think for fans, like after seeing all of the injuries we've had this season, it's a heck of a statement, right? Like Brentford are doing this whole investigation into it, and presumably will be chopping some heads and bringing in some different staff, and we've clearly done the same. Like, do you all feel the same way? Like this is promising stuff from the Albion. Like we're actually being proactive. We sometimes we can be a bit slow to pull the trigger, but hopefully we should be able to mitigate a bit of this next season with these guys.
It's a sort of it's a sort of pre-season João Pedro signing, isn't it? It's a kind of they put something in place where they're not going to waste a single moment of pre-season or pre-season planning even. You've now got these people starting from by the time pre-season starts, right?
I would presume they're basically like June 1, like the classic football manager transfer.
They've probably already, that they're going to be doing stuff before the 1st of June, right? Let's be honest. It's very good. I mean, it's logical. To be honest, it's kind of what you'd expect the club to do, to go for the kind of the best of the best that's available.
It begs the question: what have we been doing up until this point?
Well, we know that the physios left mid-season.
Right.
So,
so what did we do then?
So it sounds like we just kind of winged it.
I guess it's. I mean, I think, but it's
doesn't it?
I mean, yeah, it does. From a practical point of view, I mean, how Like, I mean, it's probably quite difficult. A lot of these moves tend to happen the end of the season, right? I mean, you don't see many things like this kind of being done mid-season. Particularly, I guess
we must have had
that they want to.
There's that meme that does the rounds when there's always an injury crisis online of that. I'm preaching to the choir here. The wrestling one where it's like Stone Cold Steve Austin dressed up as the doctor or the nurse, like smashing Vince McMahon's leg in the cast. Like that's what it felt like our doctor, like medical room, has been like this year. So yeah, well, hopefully this guy's
look at the injury record, right? And it is it's pretty much like someone comes in going, my knee hurts, and it's like, I'll just walk it off.
We'll amputate. Yeah, no, especially the ones that have been supposedly like short term. I've already brought up Milner more times than I wanted to, but that was he's going to be back in a couple of weeks. Well, that was 4 months ago. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, hopefully.
Purvis. Like Purvis was initially just a knock, and like he's came back a couple of times, but he's never lasted more than about 180 minutes at most.
But is it a classic case of they've obviously if this is like anything like Tony Bloom's other signings, right? He'll have identified these people a while ago, and I guess it's a classic case of he probably in an ideal world would have wanted them sooner, but if you can only get them at this point, then you just have to. You just have to muddle through until you can get them.
Credit where it's due, but there's no way De Zerbi's got a short list of like doctors that he keeps on file to
Tony and Paul will. Paul Barber, 100. There is.
Yeah,
he did this interview where it's like literally everybody. They have a short list at the club for every single role. That if someone was to leave, they have an ongoing, constantly updated short list for every position in the club.
Where do we sign where's the backup tea lady come from?
I don't know. I'm trying
Worthing.
To makes good tea. I don't know. But yeah, literally, I mean, it is almost
Defo Worthing.
Yeah, I mean, they come out and they said that is part of it, which is, people can leave at any point, but they will have. He basically said from his role down, they have a constantly evolving shortlist for every role.
Yeah.
Preseason tour in Japan. Craig, how are we feeling about that?
It's good. It's a good job Matoma might be staying, huh? But
right? Could you imagine?
Yeah.
Just empty stadiums.
Yeah. Sorry, chaps. He's been sold.
It's that Hong Kong. Have you seen that when they tried to get Messi to come play Hong Kong? It's like he's sitting on the bench, and then everyone wants their money back.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be good, right? Just again, global reach, all of that lovely stuff. I'm sure it'll be a good spectacle for people that are able to go and stuff like that. Like it's on my bucket list to go, but I probably won't be going. But yeah, no, it's just I think it's borderline commonplace now, isn't it? Like it still feels quite new to us, but this sort of international reach of the Premier League and stuff allows this to happen. It'll be amazing for any sort of Seagulls fans that are based there.
Is it going to be like what they did in the US, where they bring up is it going to be a group of Premier League teams that go, or are we going to be facing
I think we're one of
Yokohama?
I don't know. I think it's 2 games. I don't think it's part of some like Premier League series, as it was.
Not.
I think it's just.
I
let's hope it goes better, because you talked about the injuries, right? 3 of the clubs that went to America last season are the 3 that had the worst injuries.
It's a turf, mate. Artificial turf. They hate it.
I'm convinced. Well, I'm absolutely. It's been my conspiracy from the beginning. I'm fucking convinced of that.
Who else went? Chelsea. Yeah. Who were the other teams? Chelsea.
Villa. Villa did. Yeah.
Chelsea, Newcastle, Brentford, and Villa.
Yeah. So all the teams that have
all the teams that have horrendous injuries.
It's the turf. Yeah.
Anyway.
That's American food is awful for you as well.
Yeah. That's
so those saturated fats.
Yeah, it's got to be something.
Good. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of global. It's the name of the game, isn't it? And it's the time to do it. It's kind of peak Matoma.
Can you imagine how many kits you're going to sell? Like you have to just take
there were a shitload of Matoma shirts in New Jersey.
Yeah.
When the team came here, said, I hate to think how many there's going to be. I wonder if we just go and sign another Japanese player just to sort of just
for it
promote the
I mean, Nike are going to be the happiest, right? Because I think in those club deals, right, the club don't make a huge amount per shirt. It's going to be Nike who are going to be rubbing their hands together.
Yeah, probably.
But it'll be very interesting.
All right, let's go around the leagues because Adam's favorite part of the show. Because we're at the very business end. It's finished. But Jacob in the chat. Hi, Jacob. Not seen your name in here before, so welcome to the show. Talking about what's going to happen with Sarmiento, which is worth talking about because we'll go to the championship here shortly. Playoffs in League Two: Crawley, Milton Keynes, and Crewe Doncaster start tomorrow. Double header. Sutton and Forest Green are goners. Pretty funny. Forest Green going back down to the National League in 2 seasons. Ipswich Premier League 2 seasons, both in League 1 2 seasons ago. Pretty nuts how fortunes could change there. I think we're all. I'm hoping for the winner of Doncaster or Crewe to go up, just because I like those teams more than the rest, and the Donny run will be mental. League 1 already underway. Playoffs. We've had 2 of them already. Bolton beat Barnsley 3-1. Oxford beat Peterborough 1-0. Bolton play really nice football. I don't know if you've seen it lately, but absolutely good football. I didn't expect that at all.
I'm still all on Bolton. Like, say that kind of 90s, 2000s throwback we talked about last week. Like, I'm fully on the Bolton bandwagon.
JJ Kocher era.
Yeah, 100%.
But let's talk Championship because we've come to the end of their season. And we have a fair few players within the Championship that are worth talking about. One of them is Sarmiento. So at the wrong end of the table, Rotherham, long gone. Huddersfield succumbed to the drop yesterday, even though they had really no chance at all. And in the most hilarious turn of events ever, Birmingham City joined them after sacking their manager. They have brought in Wayne Rooney. It went as swimmingly as you would expect. And Tom Brady and his investment gang have promptly got Birmingham from 6th place to 22nd and relegated into League 1. Plymouth, Sheffield Wednesday, and Blackburn all stayed up.
On Birmingham, Did you see that goal that the fans scored when they invaded the pitch?
Absolute screamer, yeah. I've never seen anything like it, yeah.
If you haven't seen this, go look online just search for like Birmingham City, like fan invasion goal. There's hundreds of fans on the pitch. This guy just comes out of nowhere. He's probably 8 pints deep. Just absolutely whacks the ball. And how many yards out was this? He just punts it in the top corner.
It's got to be 40 yards.
Yeah,
it was nuts.
And then the fans just go for him. It's incredible. Yeah.
It was like any sense of like pissed offness at the end of the season, which I'm sure they all felt was just alleviated a little bit. Like, they're all like, oh, thank God that idiot just scored that. But Blackburn obviously have Birmingham's old manager, which name is just escaping me heavy. John Eustace. So they appointed him. So it just felt incredibly wonderful to see Blackburn turn over Leicester on the last day of the season to secure safety under him and then send Birmingham down in the process. So they will not be missed. Rest in peace, Bozos. I'm really happy to see you go. At the other end of the table, Norwich, West Brom, Southampton, and Leeds in probably the most boring set of playoffs ever. But Ipswich have joined Leicester, deservedly so, in the Premier League next season. McKenna, absolute magic man for Ipswich right now. But Jeremy Sarmiento is part of that team. What do we think is going to happen with Jeremy Sarmiento? Do you see him going back to Ipswich? Do you see him staying at Albion and being used? Do you think he's going to get sold? What's the situation with Mr. Sarmiento, do you all think?
Another season at Ipswich.
In the Prem, you think?
Yeah. I mean, there's talk about that his loan deal basically included essentially a clause to that effect, right? If they went up, basically you can have him for another year. I mean, I think it's basically either it's difficult because he hasn't really been used that much. Like, comparatively.
Not at all.
He scored a couple of important goals for them. But, I see the most likely outcome is them taking him for another year, right? We don't especially need the money. They probably don't want to spend a ton of money. Probably suits all parties to put him in the shop window in the Premier League and see if he can do it.
The Ansu Fati special.
Yeah, we're doing a reverse.
Aldi Ansu Fati.
Yeah, exactly. We're doing our own version of that. So I think that's probably the most likely outcome, right? They know what they're getting. They don't have to go and find somebody else. he's probably going to be a squad player. It's one of these. I think it makes sense for everybody, unless we get somebody else coming in offering us, decent money to take him permanently. I'd say that's probably where he'll end up.
Dewsbury Hall's going to be that marquee signing, isn't he? 25 years old.
Feels like it.
Yeah, I mean, he's been rumoured with other clubs, but there was a lot of smoke in January about that, wasn't there? And they still need to sell players. They're still going to be screwed.
Yeah,
they need to sell Dewsbury Hall or who else soon to avoid even more whiplash from the Premier League, because they're already going to be in trouble. But I think it's like there's a date early in June that's a cut off again.
30th of June is normally the account. It's normally like you got to the end of June.
There's another one in there though, because I just saw it in like the local paper. Is all I know. Like it's like I can't remember what day it was. Like there's somewhere mid-June that like they need to sell a player to like get more money in somewhere to help.
It'd be a perfect signing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like I'm not just doing that. I'm absolutely pillaging them. Like I'm taking James Justin too. Like there's a solid right back for you right there. 26 years old. Like to me, I'm taking both. Like thanks a lot. 50 million quid for the pair. Say no more, fam. Here's bit of your debt cleared. Thanks a lot. Goodbye. Like I'm off and make off like absolute bandits. Like I think that I would take him as well. I really would at that age, especially. Carl Rushworth as well is my other one I wanted to talk a little bit about. Making major waves at just about every club he's gone to. Jason Steele is surely not going to be in the number one conversation next season. I pray. Will he want to stay here if he's not? Or is he going to want to go somewhere where he might be able to get first team football regularly? We don't know. No. Verbruggen, I'm assuming, is going to hope to be the number one. But Carl Rushworth, Swansea love him. He's been phenomenal for them. Everybody in the Championship is basically in agreement that he's been one of the best keepers in the Championship, if not the best keeper in the Championship. For Swan, and they're in 14th, I think they finished. What do you think we do with this goalkeeper situation? Because we've got about 6 of them that are high-quality goalkeepers, all very young, that are all coming through the ranks. Do you think that Rushworth goes on loan again next season? Another season at Swansea? Do you think he goes to a Premier League side that's lower, like a newly promoted side, if they wanted to bring in?
His contract expires in May. Does it? Or is it just his loan contract? Oh, no, I think it's just his loan. Okay, he's until 2027. So he's got ages. Yeah, we'll loan him out, won't we?
Loan him out. I think it will depend on who's interested. I think they'd be quite happy to let him go back to Swansea, knowing that he's going to be playing regularly. But if, like you say, if a lower end Premier League club's in for him, but then it's difficult, right? If you're a young keeper like that, and you're going to be playing bottom end of the Premier League, is it more demoralising to be shipping goals every week than it is to potentially be playing in the Championship, but in a team where you might actually have a bit more balance in terms of your
look at Trafford, right? Like Trafford, we're looking at him now and thinking, he probably could have done with a year somewhere else before this, because
other than his one game at the Amex where he turned into prime Taffarel for 90 minutes.
Like... That's a reference. I actually think going to a low Premier League team as a goalkeeper is actually quite good, because you get the most opportunity to put yourself in the shop window, because you're just being peppered with shots over and over again. And we've seen it was like Pope, wasn't it? When Burnley went down, and he then goes straight to Newcastle. And there's been a few others like that where we've seen players or keepers where you're just like, oh God, that guy would be good if he wasn't being hit with 40 shots a game. So it might actually be good to play for one of those lower Prem teams.
I'm hearing that about Kaminsky a lot for Luton. Like a lot of teams, a lot of stuff, like people are saying Kaminsky's done really well this season. It's a shame he's playing for a shit team.
It's just no pressure, right? If you're at one of these lower teams, you had James Beadle at Sheffield Wednesday, right? They looked absolutely doomed. You loan another young goalkeeper that we have, zero pressure whatsoever. Just go in and do your best, right? And that could be the way that Rushworth goes. Is you go to an Ipswich, you go to not a Leicester, but like a lower Premier League team or something in that ilk, or you can go even abroad, right? Give them some sense of international experience as well. But like Adam said, there's zero pressure. You get peppered left, right, and arson, and it's like, okay, you just do your best and just see what happens. But it's in terms of the goalkeeper situation in general, right? Like the whole 3 keeper thing doesn't do anything anymore. I think there was an article around what 3rd keepers actually are nowadays, and I don't see Steele going anywhere. So Rushworth has to go somewhere, Beadle has to go somewhere, and we'll see. I don't think that they stay with us. I think there's one more year out there for both of them.
There's only, this is an incredibly pathetic comment to make, but there are only 20 goalkeeper jobs at the Premier League. It's not. We have conversations a lot. It's like, oh, are they going to be happy on the bench? Well, yeah, you pretty much should be. There's not that many good jobs. Like, there's only one of you on each team, unless someone gets injured. And there are plenty of very good backup keepers on Premier League teams because they just cannot get a start, and they'd rather get the Premier League wages than go off to, we
watched one of the bastards today.
Right.
Exactly. Put in a world-class performance.
It's the same with like Kelleher at Liverpool, and there's a bunch of them where you're just like, God, you're fairly decent to be a backup, and that's kind of just what you sort of want now. And I'd rather, kind of to the points you've made, Steele can pop over there, and let's have a promising youngster as backup to Verbruggen as number 1 and do it that way. I do want to bring up though, you guys we had a 10-minute sidebar about we need to have more players that are in the prime of their careers. May I highlight a man that has played 28 games this year with 18 goals and 10 assists in Deniz Undav, 27 years old. He is that player. And we've mocked Deniz Undav endlessly, right? About, oh, he's done it against crapper teams or whatever. He got an assist yesterday against Bayern Munich. He's been doing it against decent teams this year. Stuttgart have been fairly impressive all in all. But what are we doing with Deniz Undav? Because Stuttgart have come out and basically said, well, mixed messages. But the first thing they said was that we can't afford him, even whether we have the option to buy.
Oh, I'm bringing him home. I'm doing everything I need to, and I'm starting him next season. Absolutely, in front of Pedro.
I'm ready to be hurt again.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I am ready. No doubt about it. I am ready to be hurt again. But I am starting Deniz Undav up top next season without a shadow of a doubt. With João Pedro.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't think that sentiment will be shared by much of the fan base, despite the fact that. But at the same time,
we know that Pedro and Ferguson doesn't work, right? We've tried that, and I know Ferguson's been off his boil this season, but like it's just a perfect little enlarge in Undav and Pedro. I like it too. I mean,
again, he's playing with Guirassy. Like, Guirassy a big boy. Yeah. Like it. Yeah.
So what? Faf? Can you imagine saying this 12 months ago? You will be committed to an asylum. But are we in agreement that Fatty out Deniz Undav in is a better move for this club?
Absolutely.
100%. 100%. Christ.
Speaking of which, there has to be a clause for Fatty to be on the subs bench, right? Because he is just sitting there. There's no inclination of using him.
No.
Yeah, doesn't look like it. All right, before we wrap, we are going around the league, so we'll finish in the Premier League and just give one last congratulations to record breakers Sheffield United with their 100th goal conceded this season. Congratulations. You are absolutely useless. You're a waste of a spot in the Premier League, and we hope to never see you again.
It's remarkable seeing 3 digits in the goals against column. Like it doesn't look like it was designed to populate that many digits.
Like I will never forget how awful their fan base were and the team were during COVID in wanting to restart play and essentially being like, we don't care how many people are dying, we're on a run, so like F you. Like I'll never forget it. Like I hate them forever for how horrible they were. So good. I hope they go down. I hope they stay down. And I hope Sheffield United go past them. And I hate Sheffield Wednesday. And I hope Sheffield Wednesday go past them. And I hate Sheffield Wednesday as well. Hate them all.
Big anti-Sheffield vibes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, screw them.
Well, on that note. And we've contributed a fair bit to that goal tally as well, by the way.
Yeah,
6 goals in the league and then 5 in the cup.
Yeah, they've been our punching bag, the only one pretty much this year. So we should actually be thankful to them. Without them, we might not finish where we end up finishing. So thank you, Sheffield United, and your overall incompetence.
All right. Well, on that note, we have 3 games left. Next up, Newcastle away. Last away day of the season, though, so I'm sure there'll be a decent crowd going. I think there's only about 200 tickets left, and that's usually about what we can muster every time anyway, because it's a long, old trip. So everybody going to Newcastle, enjoy it. Last away day of the season's always a really fun one, no matter what. It's going to be a really hard day at St. James's Park. They're incredibly good at home. So we'll just have to see what comes from that. And then afterwards, we finish at home, Chelsea and Manchester United. So we will see you all next weekend. We have a bunch of playoff football this week in the Football League, for those who care. Love playoff football, so I will be watching most of them. And enjoy your bank holiday in the UK.
Yes, scumbags. We don't get that.
I forgot about it as well. Yeah.
Damn, sucks to be you guys.
I hope you don't enjoy it.
Enjoy your 5-day week, stateside Seagulls, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Cheers all.